New InnovEU episode. We have new chronicles for you, and this week I'll be talking with Christof Thöny from Austria. He's an historian and he's been doing some very interesting projects. We'll be talking a lot about cultural area and education as well. But first off, we'll start with the analysis of the Draghi report and how it connects with the EU-funded programs. We have to talk. It really has a lot to do. I think it's worth thinking about this, discussing. If you can join the discussion, I would love it. And we end with the analysis of an open call, innovative tools for the study, conservation and restoration of heritage objects. It's an Horizon Europe Cluster 2. It's very interesting. So please share, like, subscribe. It's whatever platform you're seeing this, it's important to press all those buttons because the algorithms like buttons, and this will help the podcast reach other people. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy it. Bye. Okay, you heard about the Draghi report, you heard about it. We should talk. Let's look into the major conclusions because I think it's very relevant for EU-funded projects. It's worth talking about it. So, if you look at the major conclusions, what the Draghi report tells us is that there's an innovation gap in Europe. There's a problem with energy and decarbonization. And there's a problem with geopolitical security and dependencies. And the future of Europe relies on these three major problems. So if we look at it more carefully, what the Draghi report tells us is that Europe underinvests in R&D. So we have all that talk about how Horizon Europe is the largest program in all over the world. What the Draghi report tells us is different. We should invest more. It also tells us that the results are not famous because on the top 50 tech companies in the world, only 4 are European. And that can be a problem, particularly in the industries that are changing the world, like AI and everything connected with the digital transformation. On the second place, energy is a problem in Europe. Energy prices are 2 to 5 times higher than those in the US. So what this means, we must put numbers in this because it's something really troubling. It means that if you are paying 10 euros for energy in your company in Europe, you then move that company to the US and you'll be paying 2 euros, not 10, 2. It's a problem. We agree with that. But on the other hand, the Draghi report also tells us that this process of decarbonization that supposedly all the world is going through can be an opportunity. And finally, it also tells us that competition from China in clean tech is a problem, a threat. Okay. Third major conclusion: geopolitical security and dependencies are a problem for Europe. It's overly reliant on these external suppliers for some critical materials and technology, particularly China. So it recommends a coordinated EU-wide approach to security and supply chain independence. Okay, these are the three major conclusions of this report. Now, if you remember, if we have been talking about the 5 transitions that the whole world is going through, and these are important for Europe's future, but not just for Europe. And if we compare both frameworks, they both stress innovation, energy independence, and security as non-negotiables, as very important for Europe's future. Same thing for other parts of the world, of course. So if we start by the green transition, this decarbonization process aligns with the need to reduce energy costs and lead to clean technologies. That's basically a coincidence with the Draghi report. We just don't know how much have we progressed in that area. Nobody's measuring. If you look at the digital transition, more or less the same thing, but the Draghi report is telling us that, well, it's not going too well for Europe. We are playing catch up. We are lagging behind, and this in the main industries that are actually changing the world. So that can clearly be a problem, but we still don't have that measure that tells us how much are we lagging behind. Ever since when? Okay, in third place, if we look at the transition to a new globalization, we already know that supply chains were too long before the pandemic and the war, and they are being rebuilt, and that's crucial. Okay, we know that's crucial for the competitiveness of European industries and also for Europe's security. Same thing for America and all others. And well, have we progressed? How is this transition going? We don't know. Fourth place, the transition to a war economy that nobody assumes, but everybody is doing. But how fast are we really transitioning? Same thing. But the Draghi report also emphasizes how strategic this is for stability and for the future. Not just Europe. It talks about Europe, but it's important for all parts of the world. And finally, the Draghi report points as a major problem the lack of productivity growth in the housing crisis. Now in previous newsletter issue, I had the opportunity to analyze how the housing industry has been going through a very long period of no innovation, no productivity growth. But also in other issues, it was also clear that that's not the only problem. That's not the only cause for this housing crisis. So the solution must be also in other areas, and that the Draghi report does not analyze. Okay, so if we look at these conclusions and we compare it with these five transitions, can we assume that they result from a failure in EU support programs, EU support for research and development programs, like Horizon Europe, EIC, or InvestEU? They were designed to drive innovation. They were designed to foster technological leadership. So the Draghi report is telling us we are lagging behind. We have an innovation gap. So can we assume these programs have failed? Shouldn't they have prevented? Weren't they designed to prevent these problems? I mean, Horizon, all these programs, they didn't start yesterday. They started 2021. Okay, you're right. Yeah, it's we shouldn't expect fast results in these kind of programs. So maybe these 3 years is still not enough to have some, but we also should have some signs, no? Um, so if I can change, if we look at these programs, Horizon Europe has a huge budget. It was boasted as the largest program in all over the world. But in spite of that, the results apparently are not famous. The EIC was meant to back these breakthrough innovations and help them get to market. Where are they? In the market? Not really. At least not in the important industries. And InvestEU was designed to foster strategic investments. Well, energy is a strategic area. What happened? Not much. Okay, they didn't foresee a war. maybe they should have, but nevertheless, what is being done to solve that? So, in conclusion, okay, maybe it's too early to conclude that these programs have failed, but maybe it's reason to be worried and to be very vigilant because despite this massive funding, apparently we're still underinvesting. Despite all this talk about innovation, what we've seen is more regulation efforts than and fragmented efforts with a very complex set of rules and programs, and we haven't seen much results. So the urgent reforms that the Draghi report suggests may be an opportunity to rethink these programs and to see if their execution really comes to some kind of impact to close these gaps. As a conclusion, okay, yes, they are. The EU programs are failing. Maybe can still recover and they can still be very important, but it's time to make some adjustments. It's time to make some changes. That's my opinion. What's yours? Please use the comment sections, whatever platform you're on, and tell us what do you think. Are these EU programs failing? Should anyone be held accountable for their failure? Should they be changed now that we are more or less in the middle of the execution? Let us know what you think about this. And let's keep the conversation going. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, so we're back. We're back to InnovEU, the EU Project Chronicles. Thank you for being here. I have with me Christof Thöny. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. We're talking from different places in Europe. I'm in Portugal. You are in Austria. Fortunately, you are a bit away from the central storm that is currently devastating part of your country. I hope everything is well. But please, Christof, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your institution?
Yes, of course. So I'm Christof Thöny, as you mentioned. I'm coming from Austria, from Vorarlberg, which is the western province of Austria, pretty close to Switzerland. I'm working part-time as a teacher for history and religious education. So I do EU-funded projects for my school too. We do Erasmus projects in the field of school education, K1 and K2. And I'm working as a freelancer, as a historian or project manager for different organizations, for municipalities, museums, archives, and other associations. And on the level of EU-funded projects, I basically work for two associations. One is a museum in Austria, in our area. So we have started quite early, about 20 years ago, in different programs. And the other one is Xenia, an association that I started about 8 years ago, which basically works in the field of intercultural communication, integration of migrants, working with refugees, and things like that.
Okay. How did you start? What was your first project?
In our museum, our first project was LEADER. I don't know that's not so common. Maybe LEADER is a program for rural areas because we are pretty far away from the big centers, from universities, etc. And LEADER is quite important for us. So our first project was on the history of traffic. It was on hiking trails on historic routes, dealing with archaeology, with history, and bringing the experience of cultural roots for hikers nowadays. And well, that was my first step into EU-funded projects.
Since then, you've been working, as you said, in different programs. Is there a favorite project of the ones you have done? Is there one that is your favorite?
Well, maybe it was Roots. That was an Erasmus project that we leaded from our organization with different partners, very different areas. So from the Azores to Budapest and Athens, it was a combination of rural areas and bigger cities or capitals in Europe. And we were trying to build a foundation for learning where you live. So young people, students should try to grab or dig where you live. It's a common approach in social history, and we created materials and brought students from different countries together, and that was a really good experience. And as you mentioned, we work in different programs. So after Leader, we started to do Interreg with Switzerland, Germany, and Liechtenstein. And since about 8 years, we do Erasmus Plus, and we also do CERF, and we now have applied for a Creative Europe project, which will be funded and which will start pretty soon.
So, is there a favorite program? Is there of the ones you worked on?
Well, I think all the programs have their pros and cons. It is a lot of administration. It is a lot of bureaucracy. I like Erasmus Plus as it is now for all groups of learners, for all ages, and so on. I like European Remembrance, this focus in CERF, because the history of fascism and National Socialism and so on is a very important part of our work, remembering oral history, things like that. So there is something in every program that is interesting for us. And if I may mention that, by the way, we get pretty much acknowledgement for what we do this year. We have received the European state prize. So Austria, they have a state prize for European projects, and we were happy to receive the prize in the field of culture.
Oh, good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You are an historian, so is that why you have that preference for the remembrance part of CERF, for instance?
Yes, of course. Yes. Many of my projects have a historical approach, because I think that if you know where you come from, it is much easier for you to build your presence and to build your future, of course. I think that Roots is for every community, for every family, for people, for politicians, for nations, and so on, should be an important topic, because, well, of course, that is a huge sentence, but learning from the past would be the ideal to prevent the mistakes that have been done in the past. And especially from this side, this European remembrance aspect of CERF is a very important one.
Yeah, we often, I was listening to you, we often listen people say that we shouldn't, history does not repeat itself. Some parts of it could be repeated, not the mistakes. That's the bad part, when we repeat the same mistakes. Well, let's hope it doesn't go that way. But let me ask you different questions. What are your projects for the future? What would you like to be doing in the near future?
Well, right now we kind of come back to the roots, because, as I mentioned before, 20 years ago, we did a project on the history of traffic and on cultural roots and so on. And right now, the project in Creative Europe, which was applied for in Serbia, will be a main topic for us in the future. The cultural heritage of railway is very important for us, because the Alberg Railway, which connects Bludenz with Innsbruck, which was built 140 years ago and was an important impact on economy, tourism, and so on, will be very important, because well, I think that it's also important to preserve the heritage of traffic. For example, we have another project, One Culture, that is kind of continuation of this Roots project I mentioned before. So there is a lot to do for the future. We also do KA1 in Erasmus+, so we try to bring people from our rural area to European institutions. We basically adult learners. We organize excursions to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, for example. In about 2 months, we will travel to, we will travel to Lorraine in France on the tracks of immigrants for our area who used to work there 200-300 years ago, and we have prepared an exhibition on that. So it is a good way. All these projects and programs are a great way to bring people together, to get a new impression of what culture means, what Europe means, and so on. And well, it's always a pleasure to apply for new stuff.
I don't want to close the interview without asking you, because you have this long experience, you have been doing projects for decades. I would really like you to give some advice to newcomers, so people who are starting or thinking about applying for the first time. There's some advice you would
Well,
give?
basically, my advice would be just give it a try. I know that all the bureaucracy can be a horror if you started, because it's hundreds of pages to read and so on. But nowadays, in all the programs, they have these small scale programs, Interact, Leader, Erasmus Plus. So this is a good way to start. Looking for partners online. There are so many possibilities nowadays. And well, it's just a chance not to stay on your local or regional or national focus, but to widen up your view on an international level. And well, yes, I would say just give it a try.
Let me insist on this point. What advice would you give to newcomers about this? Where should they start? They should start with project ideas or with partners? What's the first place to start?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think it should be a combination of both. So in all our countries, in all our regions, we have offices for Europe. We have project supporters and so on. We have national agencies who give a lot of information and who do a lot of advertisement for Erasmus Plus, for example. Just contact these people when you have an idea. Get in touch with them. Let you give an advice what is possible, and yeah, if you have an idea, develop it. Look where you get support for developing an idea and where you can be able to bring partners together. We, as a cultural organization, we are, for example, part of ENCC, European Network of Cultural Centers, because we are part of the IG Kultur Austria. And when you are a member of the IG Kultur, you're also a member of ENCC. They organize once or twice a year network meetings where you can come together, develop ideas, meet new people. And that, for example, can also be a first step into a more international view on your work.
Okay, Christof, thank you very much. We can put your contacts in the podcast notes so that people can get in touch with you eventually to join those networking events that you're mentioning. Any final message you want to close?
Well, I'm not the type for big messages. I just think for us, as we are really in a rural area, even if you live in a small village somewhere in Europe, these European programs can offer you a lot of possibilities. So it's not just for universities, for big cities, for urban centers. It's for everyone in Europe, and we all should try to use these chances, what these projects and programs are offering.
That's a very good point to close, because here in the podcast we've had people from Brussels, right in the center, but we also had quite some how do you say that in English? We had some people from rural areas in Greece, in Italy, and now in Austria. So really, we had people from all kinds of localities and all kinds of organizations. That's a good point. I hadn't think about that before. Well, thank you very much to Christof for being here, and I hope we'll see each other again pretty soon.
Hopefully. Thank you for inviting me.
Do you want to help preserve and restore Europe's rich cultural heritage using cutting-edge technologies? The Horizon Europe Call Horizon CL 2024 Heritage ICSIC 0105 is now open, inviting innovative projects focused on developing advanced tools for the study, conservation, and restoration of heritage objects. Who can apply? This call is open to a wide range of organizations, including universities, research institutions, cultural heritage bodies, technology companies, and SMEs. To be eligible, projects must involve at least 3 independent legal entities from different EU member states or associated countries. Partnerships are key. This call encourages cross-border collaboration between cultural institutions, research bodies, and tech innovators. Together we can develop and integrate state-of-the-art technologies to protect and restore Europe's cultural treasures. Don't miss out. The call opens on 18th June 2024 and proposals are due by 22nd January 2025. The total budget for this call is €8 million, with expected contributions per project between €3 million and €4 million. The outcomes? Successful projects will revolutionize the way we study, conserve and restore heritage objects, ensuring future generations can enjoy our shared cultural heritage. Your innovations could be the key to preserving Europe's past for the future. Ready to make a difference? For more details on how to apply, visit the Funding and Tenders portal today. Horizon CL 2024 Heritage ICSIC 0105. Help build the future of cultural heritage.
InnovEU, the EU Project Chronicles, is a weekly video podcast. Please subscribe to Polixdocs newsletter to receive every podcast episode. And if you like receiving it, please press like in whatever platform you are watching or listening. Also, please share InnovEU and Polixdocs with anyone you feel will enjoy it. Credits: author and host Fernando C. Gaspar, music Hugo Gaspar, Lisbon, Portugal, 2024. Reach us by email or DM.